Finally, I'm going to hand over to Ben of Memrise.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sorry to drag you back after the socializing. I promise a highly cerebral and difficult to understand presentation. There's something quite surreal about talking into a microphone and not hearing it reverberate. It's kind of sort of for posterity. It's very weird. Anyway, so I want to start with, I've absolutely no introduction of myself at all, but with a question. Who thinks that it's difficult to learn a new language? Okay, fairly strong consensus that it is. And that's pretty widely held opinion. But the odd thing about that is that all of us have learned a language. So this is something that all of us have done, and yet we all consider to be extremely difficult, which is a bit bizarre. It's kind of like considering it to be incredibly difficult to learn to walk upright. You know, that is, taken in the abstract, a difficult computational task. So actually, I'm going to... So I think we've been guilty of a misjudgment, is my opinion, as this cat has been. The odd thing about GIFs is they get better with the viewing. And as an aside, when you're making a presentation with a lot of GIFs in it, it's actually really, really difficult to do, because when the GIF is on the screen, it's incredibly difficult to write anything. You just find yourself staring at the GIF. So back to this, I think we've made a misjudgment, because I think that humans learn languages naturally. Our brains are designed to learn languages. And to say that it's difficult is like saying learning to walk upright is difficult. Of course, learning to walk upright is difficult if you're a cat. But it shouldn't be difficult if you're human. I'm going to click on to this. I've got a lot of these filler screens so that you don't get distracted by just watching that, and we can just go dead for a while. And so what I want to understand is, why is it so difficult? Why do we all believe it's so difficult to learn a new language? And I think the core thing here is its experience. It's the bitter experience that so many of us have of learning languages at school, of going abroad and hearing a stream of gobbledygook that we don't understand a single piece of, and or learning a few phrases from the phrasebook, and you finally get it down, and you go and you say, "Donde está el autobús?" And then they answer something, and you're I don't know, I was quite pleased with myself a moment ago. This is miserable. It's a horrible, horrible experience. And I think if I can distill down the two aspects that make it most miserable, one is that there's this huge gulf of difference between your reason for learning the language, which maybe you kind of imagine yourself in a Parisian jazz bar with a big glass of red wine discussing philosophy with a beautiful woman. Yeah. And in fact, what you're doing is sitting in the back of a class going, "Je voudrais," just totally cocking it up, or doing your vocab test and knowing none of it. And the experiences are just too far apart. Now, that's one thing. I've kind of entirely forgotten how this links into the GIFs, which is a point I'll come back to later. So that's one problem. The next problem is that when you're learning a new language and you're unable to communicate in a language, you feel like a baby. I mean, in a very real sense, you are like a baby. You can't communicate. But you're not like this baby. You're not being coddled by a loving, the resolution's a bit poor, so you might have to squint to really get the best out of this GIF. But you're not being coddled by a mother that is prepared to talk to you incredibly slowly and repeat things really slowly and kind of go, "Hey, it's okay, come on," and talk to you nicely and make you feel good about it. You feel like a baby that's being judged for being a baby. And you feel like a baby that everyone's going, "Well, you can't walk yet. You're crap. Like, my dog had puppies and they could walk straight away. You're rubbish. You're a year and a half. You can't walk. You're useless." And that judgment, that feeling of being judged, and the feeling that other people are thinking that you're a moron, is one of the most painful things about learning a language. And that's what makes you just think, actually, this isn't the experience I wanted. I'm not talking to a hot girl in a Parisian jazz bar. And secondly, everyone thinks I'm a baby and a moron, and I'm feeling pretty rum about that whole thing. So how can we change that? Well, I think firstly, we need to work out ways of creating learning experiences which don't make you feel like a moron. We need to work out how to make you experience the genius of your mind. Human minds are incredible at learning languages. And the fact that the experiences that people tend to have when learning languages are that they feel like a moron is a failure of the techniques, not a failure of the human mind. So we need to work out how to make you experience that genius. And we also need to bring you closer to the reasons that you learn a language, want to learn a language in the first place. And so just now a little tardily, a bit of background on Memrise. We come from a background of sort of psychology and the study of memory. And my co-founder, Ed, is a Grand Master of memory. He once held the world record for memorizing binary digits, which is a singularly absurd way to spend your youth. Loads, just really, really loads. Must be thousands. I actually don't know. Good point. I'll find out. So one of the things that troubled us most, and we most want to bring to the world with setting up Memrise, was this fact that memory loves things that are funny. And you just can't help remembering things that are funny or shocking or surprising. And so a learning experience should be, the best learning experience is funny. And it's shocking and it's surprising. It's all things that you like doing. And yet people's experience of learning things is, like learning. Oh man, that's miserable. I've just got to say it over and over again. This is horrendous. But that's a crap way to learn. The best ways to learn are hilarious. So why isn't there a learning product that is authentically hilarious throughout? So that was one major thing. And the other thing is slightly more mundanely, this thing called the forgetting curve, looking at when you forget memories, when you have a new memory, how long it takes before that memory fades, and where you need to be tested to strengthen that memory maximally. And the idea is that when you're about to forget something that you've learned, and you really have to strain, you get that tip of the tongue feeling, that's when the memory is being strengthened the most. So if you remember it, having had a tip of the tongue experience, that's the maximum memory strength. If you don't remember it, it in fact weakens the memory. So if you have a tip of the tongue experience and try and remember something, then you need to go and kind of bring that to fruition. You can't leave it hanging because that does actually weaken the memory. But we want to do more than what we do. So on Memrise, you do this through crowdsourced visual mnemonics. So for every word in every language, people put up mnemonics to help them learn that word. So as an example that I said earlier this evening, therefore it's going to stick in my memory, the Spanish word polvo means a one-night stand. And so it's one of my favorite memes on Memrise. There's a picture someone's uploaded of the front bonnet of a Volvo. It's very dusty front bonnet, and there are two handprints in it. And the caption is, because he drove a Volvo, it was only a polvo. And which is particularly genius because polvo also means dust. And so it actually ties both things in there. So we've got millions of these mnemonics. Literally, we have about 10 or 15,000 more added every day by people who are helping people remember stuff. And the idea is that then when you're tested on the word, you see a one-night stand in Spanish, and you get that moment of thinking, oh, I'm being tested, I hate this. And then you think, oh, Volvo, there's a Volvo, and it's a polvo. And you think, God, my brain's really cool. It makes those connections. I like that. But Memrise is very much a vocabulary learning tool. And what we wanted to do is make something that actually brings you closer to the experience of learning the language, and so it gives you the whole spectrum. And this, it's a massively multi-dimensional space, what you're trying to do. And so we've got these 4 heuristics that we try and break up the task, and we try and keep in mind when we're designing. So the first is, what is the best way to grab your attention and focus it on what you're learning? Spoiler alert, the answer to all of these questions is cats. So what's the best way to make people feel the genius of their mind and feel like they're clever? What's the best way to give people a positive emotional association with their learning? And what's the best way to feel the joy of speaking a new language? And I've in fact spoiled my spoiler alert, that the answer is cats. And so let's look at these one by one. What's the best way to grab people's attention? There's a good Dr. Johnson quote that is, I've forgotten it. Memory is the art of attention. That was a genuine mind blank. That wasn't pretended. Memory is the art of attention. And it's a simple thing. If you're not paying attention to something, you are never going to learn it. And so we need to work out how to get people's attention onto what they're learning. And I like this one just because. So the cat's making him pay attention. It's a slightly tenuous link there. Mainly it's just pretty funny. We'll come back to actually another thing about this is the complexity of the scene there. Is something that's quite unique to cats. Dogs would never pull off that kind of thing. So just thinking about ways that we can train people's attention on what we want them to learn. And one of the most widespread that you see is the use of rewards. You say, I'll give you points, I'll give you stars, I'll give you whatever if you learn this. And that works reasonably well. In games, it works incredibly well. But learning is fundamentally different to games. And I think the problem here, and I think this is incredibly well illustrated by this study, which is actually to do with contributions in online communities, but the points still stand here. And this is a meta-analysis, by the way, of studies done on different sorts of communities all over the internet over the last 15 years. So if the task is low interest, then there is a positive effect for doing the task. And this is mostly actually the case with learning games, that the task that you're doing is low interest. It's actually quite painful, the experience of it. And so giving people rewards is good. The problem comes when actually we don't want to be over here. Because if you're a low interest task, although it'll improve it, like you give someone a gold star for doing the washing up. You give kids a gold star for doing the washing up, they're going to do it a few times and be like, I want the gold star. And then after about a week or an hour, they'll be, that's just crap. I don't want to do any more of this washing up. This is rubbish. So what we want to look at is the high interest tasks. So essentially, we want to move from there into the high interest tasks. But when you're doing high interest tasks, the difficult thing is that a lot of the time, points actually end up giving, or extrinsic rewards, which is what these are, actually end up having either no value or having a negative value. And this is quite a complex space to try and understand how you're rewarding people. But as a broad thing here, verbal is kind of social reward, your friends telling you you've done well, your teacher telling you, hey, that was really good, well done, you're great. And that has a positive effect. Then tangible rewards, there's a difference between expected and unexpected. Unexpected, unsurprisingly, have no effect. No one knows they're going to happen, so no one cares. Expected ones are basically all negative, except for the ones for exceeding others. And so you've got to be better than other people. And the way I like to summarize this, imagine, for example, you have a new lover, and after your first affair together, you get a verbal reward. That was nice. You're like, sweet, I'm quite pleased with that. If you get a kind of an unexpected reward, that was nice, I'm going to buy your car. You'd be a bit bewildered, but you'd be like, well, that's okay. I'm a bit weirded out, but all right. Other ones, I'm not sure exactly where this would fit, but like if they turned over and were like, good, there's 100 quid. You'd be a bit like, wait, that has actually just meaningfully changed the experience that I had. And that wasn't what I signed up for. Except like for exceeding others, like, hey, you're much better than my last lover, is again, like a nice positive reinforcement. So this is a kind of caution that we need to be able to understand exactly how we're using these rewards, and this is particularly sensitive in learning games, I think, although actually, to be honest, I don't know anything about normal gaming. But although that's all important, the most important thing is moving from here to here, because high interest tasks overall are just going to be far, far more effective. And there is a huge joy in language learning, and we should be able to try and tap that. So we want to focus on that. And so what is the best way to make the task of learning a language inherently enjoyable? Cats, of course. So cats grab attention. I mean, we all know that. The internet is the largest and most elaborate scientific experiment ever run purely to prove the point that cats grab human attention, and it's been a resounding success. 100% absolute certainty. And so there are a lot of aspects to that. Cats are funny. Like, cat pictures just are really hilarious. And that's incredibly important because it's been shown in countless studies that humor helps you remember things. Absolutely sort of kind of open shut case, but there's an important proviso to that, is that the humor has to be relevant to what you're learning. And just standing up there telling jokes doesn't actually help anyone. It can be just a distraction. It's like these rewards thing. You can easily lead people off down the wrong path. And this is where cats' kind of superpower comes in, is that they are incredibly versatile. And cats, this is a good like match play here, where you see the cat, just look, the variety of emotions. There's the, what the hell? Boom! And that depth thing, whereas the dog is there. So a single emotion, very one-dimensional. And what cats can do through this versatility is that they can represent a huge variety of different phrases. So when we're teaching, as we do on Cat Spanish, a course, an introductory language course through phrases, for each phrase, we can actually find cat pictures that fit what is being expressed absolutely perfectly, because cats have that versatility. We tried Dog Academy briefly, but it was only 4 phrases long. It was a really rather disappointing offering. So, actually, there's a sort of meta point in here that I wonder if we can prove that the GIFs I've been showing you have been linked with varying quality to the points that I'm trying to make. I wonder, can anyone remember a point that I was trying to make with a cat GIF and the link between them? Anyone? Excellent. Oh, good. Okay, well, there was at least one. Any others? I was expecting for a little bit more of a bubbly audience after the cat on your head and a few drinks. But excellent. That's interesting, because the point that I was actually making was that we misjudge the language learning, but that one was in my mind as being a weak link. there was a very funny GIF, which is why I put it in. Yeah, you just like the cat. It's such a good. Sorry? So they're incredibly versatile, but they also have an extra piece of magic, which is a kind of extra free for cats that makes them truly the most remarkable learning tool. And that this is a wonderful study from a body of work by a man called Hiroshi Nitono, who is a remarkably serious researcher in a university in Tokyo, who researches the effect of cuteness on cognition. And this is showing a particular task you had to do, and it's showing the performance before and after looking at pictures of baby animals. And this is the baby animals, this is the adult animals, not as cute. He also did a further study where he was doing cats against kittens, and really, really subtly different, and still found this pronounced effect. And there are a lot of theories for why this is. It kind of makes sense, sort of intuitively, that looking at cute things, you should be being very careful and you should be concentrating hard. They tend to be babies and you tend to not want to screw it up. And but that fact is real, and it means that cats not only grab your attention and can, due to their versatility, focus it on any phrase that we want to teach you, but they also put you into a kind of heightened cognitive state where you are going to perform better on cognitive tasks, which is pretty magic if you think about it. Even if you don't think about it, it's still magic. Kind of had the impression that I was going to have a... Okay, well, I think we're now on to point number 2. I suspect behind this slide is the heuristic number 2, which is how do we make people feel clever? At least I think it's that. How do we make people feel clever? And this is difficult, because when you are learning a new language, you are like a baby. You do know absolutely nothing. And it's quite hard to dress that up as the fact that you're really clever, because you're not. You know nothing. But I think the worst thing about it is, as I said before, the fact that you're being judged for knowing nothing. So I think in this example, we look at this cat being like, quite clever, you think. But actually, from the cat's point of view, he's like, I'm not being clever. I'm just asking for food. Like, come on. Don't judge me. I'm an intelligent creature, and you've got to take me seriously. But it's very hard to take cats seriously. And I think that the point here is that we are terrified of being judged. And when we're in a rich social environment, we're terrified of what people are thinking of us and how they're going to look at us and how they're perceiving everything that we do. And learning a language is a point of putting out there a version of myself that is much worse than I perceive myself to be. It is me saying, here is me version 0.1, where I can't really say anything and I'm totally useless, and please don't be nasty to it. But you feel very weak about that. And this, as a random anecdote, this power which we have for wanting to judge things. We see this a lot of Memrise. When we first started, we had a introductory kind of try out the site before you sign up flow. And we made really nice courses for teaching people introductory, French, German, Spanish, whatever. But what we found was that no one goes to a learning site and says, I'm going to this site to learn some German, so I'm going to try it out by seeing what it's like to learn German on this site. What people do is they go to the site and they go, I want to learn German, but I speak some French, so I'm going to look at the French. And they try the French out, even though they already know the French. And so the experience of learning French on the site is totally unrepresentative to them, then learning nothing about it. They already know French. And it's just totally insane, but we do it. And I do it myself. When I try out competitive sports, I'm like, I'm not going to see the Chinese. Oh, that's rubbish. And it's just totally bizarre. You're not getting the experience you want, but the need to judge is incredibly strong. And we see this at the moment. Tinder is essentially a judgment engine. It is, you just go, I'm just going to open up Tinder and judge some people. Judge. I'm enjoying this. And as a kind of thought experiment, I'd love to see what would happen if you kind of access to Tinder's API and turn it round. You open up Tinder and it's just, that person thinks you're ugly, that person thinks you're ugly, that person thinks you're a dick. And one would imagine a rather less sticky and rather less growthy product would result from that. So I think of this as a sort of two-step goal to making people feel clever. One is to stop you from feeling judged for being a moron. And then the next step is to allow you to judge other people for being morons, or for anything, in fact, but just give you the power, make it feel like you are judging other people, and then you're in a position to start feeling quite clever about the world and quite happy about yourself. So step one, how do we give people learning experiences where they don't feel judged? And I think the idea here is that you do something which you didn't expect to be able to do, and you feel like, oh, that was quite cool. I could do something a bit more than I thought I could. And mnemonics are really good for that. And we see this on Memrise, where people have this kind of experience where they see one night stand. One night stand. What's one night stand in Spanish? Anyone? It's pretty good for recall levels of random Spanish words. And so we went through all the, and so what we wanted to do is find out what are the best ways of giving people that kind of experience, where they can make that connection in their mind, connected to what they're learning. And so on Memrise, we're lucky to have well over 1 million mnemonics made by people in 500 languages, analyze the hell out of them, find out which ones are at the top, and at the top, the most effective pictures. You all know the answer. It's cats. And I kind of feel the disappointment of someone who thought they had an extra cat picture, but doesn't. But anyway, so I'm afraid I've spared you a cat picture. But here's the ideal testing sequence. You see an English word, feel confused, see a funny picture, memory stirs, memory grows, Spanish word pops back into your head. I'm a genius. You're not feeling judged by it because you're getting things right. You don't have an opportunity to be told you're wrong. But it's very important that you don't have that opportunity and that you are made to feel that kind of chain linking effect. There's another point here. Interesting, that was linked in my mind to the picture that isn't there. So the other point here about cats is that it's quite hard to feel judged by a cute cat. And it's kind of like being judged by a baby. You just don't feel judged by a baby. There's no way I can compute that the baby's judging me. It's just cute. That's all it is. And if you give a personality to the teacher, and you change that personality, our responses to teachers are quite kind of deeply rooted, that we feel that teachers are telling us off and they're telling us to do stuff. And obviously the best teachers don't do that, but that's still our default reaction tends to be we're expecting to be judged by the teacher. When the teacher's a cat, and it's a really cute little kitten, and it's like this, you don't feel that. You just feel like, oh, that's fine, I don't care what he thinks of me. He's a little cat. Okay, cool. And that's another kind of incidental benefit of cats. So step 2, how do you make people feel like they're judging? Oh look, I did have the cat picture. Let's just enjoy that one for a moment. There's something so magical about that shape of paw, just like that. I'm an enthusiast. So the first step in making people feel that they're not judging, they are actually doing the judging, is to stop this standard format in learning where it's like, here's the information, now learn it. And this is very much what we have on Memrise, and what we have on the current version of Cat Academy is here's a phrase, here's a cat that helps you learn it, there's a connection, on you go, do that. And that's still, when you then get the first test, you're still being tested on your ability to remember what we've told you previously. And that's a little bit annoying. And there is still a hint of judgment in there. So what we're trying to experiment with, and we've got versions in beta now, where we don't ever teach you anything. We just we show you the picture of a cat, and then the cat speech bubble comes out and it says, Buenos dias. And you then have to say, what does that mean? And you have to try and translate it. And you're trying to solve the problems, partly through looking at the picture, partly through like listening to it, seeing if there are any words that you can see. But you're solving problems rather than learning. And I think that giving agency to the learner is incredibly important. And so then the problem becomes how to make people... actually, there's two of our scientific advisors, David Shanks and Rosalind Potts at UCL, did a study recently where they were looking at the effect of guessing at the meaning of words on your memory of them. And what they found was that if they gave people words in Spanish and said, what does it mean? And you had to guess, and you said, I don't know, hat. Then said, okay, actually it means dog. How well do you think you're going to remember that? Their estimation was that they would remember it worse because they'd guessed, and they felt really bad about their whole experience. And they said, I'm never going to remember that. I've created a false memory. This is a miserable experience. But they remembered it very, very significantly better. And so if you have, before being told the answer, if you've had a little effort to try and work out what it might mean, you remember it much better. Which is great for scientists trying to understand how to remember things, but it's crap for people trying to make learning products. Because if someone, straight after doing it, believes that they've learned it worse, then even if they've learned it better, they're now off looking at Instagram. They just don't care. And so what we need to do is give them that experience of struggling and thinking and solving the problem and guessing at the same time as making them think, oh, that was, I could do that. Yeah, that makes sense. So how do we do that? Cats. Again, that's got the feeling of a missing GIF, doesn't it? The empty space. It was a really good GIF of what's happening. And again, it's the versatility of cats. They can be in situations that so clearly enunciate the meaning of the phrase that you can make that kind of connection. And that's an incredibly important power. So that's not actually judging people yet. We've got another couple of iterations, the way we're doing voice recognition, rather than doing voice recognition by the computer, which again is one of these experiences where having my voice, my Spanish pronunciation judged by my phone is just offensive. That's not the relationship I have with my phone. My phone is a servant that does my bidding. It doesn't tell me that I'm really crap at saying certain words. That's just not it. And so the way that we do that is by linking you up in a kind of rate the accent game or spot the imposter, where you listen to other people saying phrases and you have to say, that one's a native speaker, that one's not a native speaker, that one's not a native speaker, but he's okay, and kind of spot those. And then once you get confident enough, you can start recording your own and other people judge it. And then they say, and then the feedback you get is like, hey, you just fooled someone into thinking that you were Spanish. And that totally changes your way of recording the voice. So when you're talking to a voice recognition tool, you'll go, buenos dias, and feel a bit crap about yourself. When you're trying to fool someone into thinking you're Spanish, you'll be like, buenos dias. I kind of just have a bit of fun with it. And there, just in doing that, you're starting to experience a bit of the joy, a bit of the magic of speaking another language. It is that fun of inhabiting a new personality. So this is going back, the ideal learning flow for the problem-solving one. You see a Spanish word, you're asked to have a guess at translating it. You see a picture that expresses the meaning. Then you reckon you have a decent idea, and then you guess it right. And then your memory grows, encouraged by a warm, fuzzy feeling of how clever you've been. And that's a happy thing. You're going to come back to that, and you're going to keep learning. So, best way to make people feel clever? Cats. Again. They let us create experiences where you feel clever and where you learn at the same time. And that's pretty magical as well. So, heuristic number 3, which will be increasingly fast. What's the best way to give people a positive emotional association? One of the problems here is learning a new language very quickly becomes that thing on your phone that you avoid doing. And you kind of stand there at a bus stop, you're looking at the apps, and you see a little notification saying, you've got to learn some German, and you're like, Instagram, and you're sort of looking at random pictures of your friends within a minute. And it feels too heavy. It feels like the kind of thing that you want to do after 10 hours sleep and 2 cups of coffee when you're feeling quite on it, and you're like, okay, now I'm in a zone where I'm going to do my tax return and then I'm going to learn some Spanish and it's going to be great. We want to turn it into the thing that you do instead of looking at Instagram. Pictures of cats. It's just a magical, it is a magical solution. If you know that behind the app icon lurks another few glorious pictures of cats, you're just going to feel so much better about life. If you just allow me to indulge myself on a few cat gifs here. And you just think, I just want to see another one. You're so lucky. So, and so by imbuing the whole learning experience with the joy-giving properties of cats, it just means that you're more likely to just think, I'm bored, I just want to look at some cats. And the fact that you're learning is incidental, and we do it by stealth, rather like that cat. This one, I couldn't fit to anything, but I just found it really funny. So how can people feel good about learning? By imbuing it with the magic power of cats. Now, point number 4. What's the best way to feel the joy of speaking a new language? Happily, you all know the answer, but hopefully there's a creeping sense of disbelief that I'm actually going to answer that question with cats. I'll hold that for a moment while we just look at what are the best things about learning a new language. Here's disbelieving cat who doesn't believe that I'm going to create cats as the answer. So I think that the real magic of learning a new language is that moment where you sit across from someone and you hear them talking at you in total rubbish and you understand it. And then you could reply, and there's a to and fro, and you're like, this is incredible. I know that my friend standing next to me doesn't understand what's going on here, but I do. And I'm really in the zone. There's incredible kind of concentration when you're in the zone. It's like, this is incredible. I'm experiencing a new language. Everything's opening up. This is incredibly exciting. And if we can get people to have that experience early on in their language learning career, then they're off. They're like on their trajectory. They're on their way. But the difficulty here is that if you learn all the phrases you need for the basic conversation, and you've got them absolutely nailed, understand all the grammar, you've got all of it, you're still like level 2. Like level 10 is being happy to get on a Skype conversation with a native speaker and just shoot the breeze with them. It's not enough. There are a whole load of behaviors you need to get to around the confidence to have the conversation. And when you go into, say, a Skype conversation with someone, there are a whole load of these social cues that are immediately present again. And you feel, again, that you're being judged and you feel nervous about it. And even though you know that the computer says that you know these phrases, you suddenly feel like, they're looking at me, do they fancy me? Oh, no, they definitely don't because I'm a moron. And that kind of thing. And it's just painful. And so what we want to do, and what we believe that technology is particularly well suited to doing, is creating the route to go from knowing abstract knowledge of the content to confidence to actually have the conversations. And the way to do this is, so the way that we're doing this is through simulated chats. And we start off with a very closed down experience, because what technology really does is create reduced experiences of the world. However much we try, hardware developers try and make it richer and richer and richer, in fact, it gets less and less. It is a very stripped down experience. We were discussing this earlier about text messages and why they're so popular, and they are just a very short form of communication that takes out a lot of the kind of social stress. And so what we're doing is creating these chats where you have chats with other learners using vocab that you all know and multiple choice conversations. I say, buenos dias, and then you go, buenos dias, ¿cómo te llamas? And you can only choose from 3 options. And what we found through testing, astonishingly, that when people understand all of the 3 options and they know which the right one is, they choose the right one. And their response to that, their self-marking of what they've done is just the same as if they produced it themselves. Because they understood everything and they knew they were making the right choice, they're really confident about it. They're like, yeah, I knew that one. That was cool. I did that. One's intuition is that doing a multiple choice conversation is just obviously rubbish, because you're like, it's just a process of elimination. I just jabbed that one. It's not a conversation. But actually, when you understand, as long as you understand all the options, you give yourself a lot of credit. And you think, actually, I'm great. I knew that. And so we're finding that by doing these, and so that's sort of step 1, and then it gets progressively more complex, and we get the interactions between different people where you can, where you're a bit freer with the conversation. this is a really gittish thing to say, but I can't go into too many of the details because we're applying for patents on the process that we're doing it, and I can't give too much of their way, but it's awesome. And what it does is it takes you from these abstract phrases that you've got to a habit of sending messages back and forth and starting to build conversations with people, to a real rich belief that you can have those conversations, and also that you can start to express yourself in other ways, and that are still non-threatening, still text-based or recorded voice, sending a message that you can then check, and is that okay? Yeah, maybe that's okay, and I'll go and do that. And take you up to the point where you feel that you have the confidence to actually say what you've been saying to a real person. And that's the point at which the stabilizers come off, and you're like, oh, I can speak Spanish. This is incredible. There's the light. Anyway, that's the project that we're pursuing. And so, what is the best way to get people to experience the joys of a new language? Chat, which, as I'm sure you will know, is the French word for cat. Coincidence? I think not. That's all.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you again to everyone for coming along. Thanks particularly to Emerge for hosting, to Richard for all the drinks, thank you very much. Also Ian, who helped me out today and who's behind the brilliant Photo Dash app, which you'd all go play, it's a lot of fun. And please do stay, I think we've still got some booze left, and when we run out of that, we're all heading down the pub, so please help us finish that off. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much.